this year there was flora and fauna all around the river. The animals during the peak of the summer season where the river used to be dry, on the check dam, there was life around it, there was greenery around it, and animals could have plenty of water. This is where Mumbai March started. I am Aditya Agrawal, media coordinator of Mumbai March, and from River March today, we have upgraded to Mumbai March. After doing so much work for the rivers, finally we have upgraded ourselves to build up a complete city. Under Mumbai March, we are running 3 campaigns right now, which is River March, which was formerly being run, Road March for the better infrastructure in the city, and Zero Slums Mumbai. Because during COVID, we have realized that it's not far that more diseases like COVID could come to India. But now it's a time for Mumbai to become a slum-free city. All we want is that people should have a life of dignity. They should not live in slums, and Mumbai has the capacity and the willpower to do it. All we need to do is go and execute that. I proudly present to you this event with Colonel Chandrasekhar Unni. I'm honored to be introducing him to our platform because he is a Kargil war veteran, the war that we fought in 1996, the war that we won in 1996. He was the one on the front. And today he is with us. The war is not over yet. Fighting for India, now he's fighting for environment of India. He's fighting for the water bodies of India. This man is not stopping, and keeps inspiring us to not stop and to move ahead with him. I'm proud to introduce you Colonel Chandrasekhar Unni, who would be giving today a presentation on how climate change is affecting the water bodies of India, the environment of India, and what are the immediate actions that we need to do to save city of Mumbai or to save the environment of India. Just some figures I'd like to put across is by 2030, it is estimated that 5 cities in India, the major cities in India, would run out of water. Yes, 5 cities would run out of drinking water, and by 2050, we would be at civil war for water. This is not very far. 2030 is just next 10 years, and 2050 is just next 30 years. Today is the time to start a war to preserve our water resources, to make sure that we use our water resources wisely and with sustainability so that everyone can survive. So before inviting Colonel Saab to the talk, I'd like to tell you that he is a climate reality leader. Climate Reality is an organization by Mr. Al Gore. Al Gore was Vice President of United States under Bill Clinton regime. And after that, he has started a climate reality project, which is inspiring leaders all across the globe, giving them the knowledge and the tools to inspire their own countries to work for the betterment of humanity and the planet Earth. With this, I proudly present a small video by Mr. Gore, who would be giving you a short introduction for climate reality, after which Colonel Saab would join us to give the presentation on water bodies of Mumbai and the world. Over to you, Mr. Gore.
Hello, everyone. I'm Al Gore, and I want to thank you for joining us today for 24 Hours of Reality Countdown to the Future. As all of you know, we're living through truly extraordinary times, and if you're like most people, you look at these challenges that we're facing now, the climate crisis getting worse, the COVID-19 pandemic, structural and institutional racism, the challenges to the operations of democracy, and you ask yourself, what can we do? How do we overcome these truly existential threats that are connected, and how do we build together the sustainable future and the just and fair future that we want and deserve? Well, the presentation you're about to hear and the discussion you're about to join is about these questions. Your host is an incredible climate reality leader that I personally have worked with, and through their presentation, you'll learn the science behind the climate crisis and why it is having such a devastating impact on the ecological balance of our planet. You'll also learn how the climate crisis is connected to the COVID-19 pandemic and is connected to the broader injustices and inequities, not only in the U.S., where I'm located, but in places all around the planet. Just as important, you'll learn that we have the solutions, and you'll learn how we can work together to solve these crises, starting with a green recovery and with a just transition to clean energy and the technologies that can make our world better in every way. You'll learn what you personally can do to make a difference and to help us create the future that we want and that humanity deserves. So before I hand you back to your host, I want to say one other thing. Thank you for being a part of this global conversation. The truth of our circumstances is very clear. We have to solve the climate crisis, and we have the solutions we need today. I know that we can solve the climate crisis. We have the political will. You know it's a renewable resource, but it's really because of people like you who are ready to commit the time and energy and attention and stand up and fight for a better world. Because of you, I know that we will succeed. Thank you.
What inspiring words. I present to you without a further ado Colonel Chandrasekhar Unni. Colonel Saab, please enlighten us.
Good morning to everyone. On behalf of Climate Reality Project and Mumbai March, I welcome all of you today to my presentation on understanding the impact of climate change on the depleting water resources and measures which need to take to overcome the water crisis which is looming large. As you heard Vice President Al Gore saying, climate change and climate crisis is real. You are seeing it daily and you are experiencing it too. The heat wave, the unprecedented drought, floods, cyclones, typhoons, water scarcity, pandemic, forest fires, large-scale migration, depletion of groundwater, these are all due to the climate change impact. In the next 1 hour, I'll be speaking on the climate change, what it is about, how it is taking place, and later on, I'll speak on the water resources, specifically climate change, how it is affecting the water resources, and what we need to do to overcome this crisis. Now, as per definition, climate change is a global phenomenon of climate transformation, which is characterized by change in the climate of the planet that are caused by human actions and burning of fossil fuel, which generates greenhouse gases and leads to heat being trapped in the earth, and having global warming is one of the main reasons. This human negligence has resulted in unbalancing of weather and threatening the sustainability of planet ecosystem. Now this is the Earth as seen from space. This photograph was taken in December 1972 by a space mission, and when this photograph was taken, the spacecraft, Earth and the Sun were in one straight line, and thereafter there has been no photograph of the Earth because there has been no space mission thereafter, and this is called as a blue moon. Now coming on to the climate change proper, what you're seeing on the screen now is the surface of the planet, that is the Earth, and what you're seeing above it is a layer of the atmosphere. This layer of atmosphere on the Earth is something like when you make a furniture, wooden furniture, and start varnishing it, the varnished portion on top of the furniture is what the atmosphere on the Earth is like. But when sun's rays falls on this atmosphere, it passes through the atmosphere. Most of the radiation is absorbed by the Earth and warms it. Some energy is radiated back into the space by the Earth in the forms of infrared rays. When sun's rays fall on this atmosphere, some of the infrared rays get trapped by the atmosphere, and that warms up the earth. As the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases, the greenhouse gases increases, more of such infrared radiation is trapped in this atmosphere, leading to more warming of the earth. Now, 93% of the extra heat trapped by the man-made global warming pollution goes into the ocean. And the ocean gets warm. And when the ocean gets warm, the level of the sea rises. And that is what causes flooding on the coastlines. Now we are spewing 152 million tons of this carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere every 24 hours. This is equivalent to exploding 5 lakh first generation atomic bomb per day for 365 days per year. And one atomic bomb exploded. So like this, 5 lakh bombs are being exploded every day. And that is the amount of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases that is emitted by us. Even Aditya Thackeray, our environment minister, the other day, quoted that extreme weather events aren't rare anymore. Climate change is a real thing. The other day I was going through an article of Global Risk Index. It mentions that out of the top 10 risks by impact, 7 out of 10 are due to climate change. If you see the number 2 is the failure of climate change mitigation and adaptation. Thereafter, all of them are related to environment. And number 4 is water crisis. And water crisis is what we are going to talk about today. These are the biggest sources of greenhouse gases. And if you see this slide, most of the greenhouse gases are due to the fossil fuel burning. Land transport, air transport, coal plants, industrial processes, these are all fossil burning processes, and they emit carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. Now, in the top 24 countries emitting carbon dioxide, India is number 3. If you look at the global carbon emission from fossil fuels, you will see that after 1950, there has been a dramatic increase of carbon emissions taking place. From 2 billion metric tons of carbon being emitted, it has gone up to more than 10 billion tons of carbon being emitted. If you see India's greenhouse gas emissions, from 1990 onwards, there has been a steady increase. And today, as of date, the carbon emission is 300 million metric tons. 3,000 million metric tons, beg your pardon. Now, if you see, where do our India's emissions come from? You see, the maximum is coming from the energy sector, 70.6%. Thereafter, agriculture is 21.9%, industry 5.6%, and rest aviation and shipping fuel as well as waste energy. Now, coming to the energy, 70.6 sector. Of this, maximum is from the electricity production, next to the manufacturing and construction, thereafter transport, and then other fuels and fugitive emissions. In the last 20 years, 19 years have been having record temperatures since 2001. So every year the temperature has been increasing, and the last 5 years has been the hottest of all so far. If you look at the global surface temperature as a departure from average, till about 1980, there was hardly any departure. But after 1980, the departure has been tremendous. From 1980 to 2020, there has been a 1 degree change in surface temperature, global surface temperature. And this is the 1 degree increase in temperature that is creating all the problem, the climate crisis. One may say 1 degree is hardly anything. But when you have a temperature, when you have fever, even 98.4, after 98.4, 0.2, 0.3 degree increase is supposed to be the body having fever. Accordingly, the earth is having a fever, and 1 degree centigrade is much, much more than what it should be. And this temperature is increasing even now. It is not that it has stopped. By 2030, this is likely to go up to another 1.5 increase. So by another 1.5 increase, you can guess what could be the climate crisis like. On 19th May 2016, India set a new all-time high temperature record of 51 degrees centigrade. This was in Rajasthan, Churu.
2 months.
Water scarcity is already affecting more than 40% of the world's population. Even during this pandemic time, as people need to wash their hands continuously, the lack of running water for washing is increasing the risk of contracting COVID and other diseases. New Delhi in 2016, because of extreme weather condition, people on the road had to be fed with water. You must have seen a video where people with hose pipes were spraying water onto the people who were riding on cycles and tricycles on New Delhi road. So let us not fool ourselves that there is no connection between the unusual number of climate changes happening, heat waves, failed monsoon. It is not just another hot summer, it is climate change. This is what Harshvardhan said in 2015 after the floods in Chennai. The floods in Chennai received 203 millimeters of rain in 3 days. India, as recent as a couple of weeks back, Bombay received 500 millimeters of rain just 3 days. And you're all aware of what happened in Mumbai when the big deluge took place. Number of extreme rainfall events in the central part of India doubled since the early 1950s. That means where 2 to 3 floods were occurring earlier, it has gone up to 6 floods every year now. Even Prime Minister Modi said after the Chennai flooding that we are feeling climate change fast going impact now. How 400 farmers committed suicide in 2016 due mainly to the pressure from the ongoing regional drought. So due to climate change, there is flooding also happening and there is drought also happening. Climate change is projected to increase both flooding and droughts in India, and it is actually happening that way. In the recent cyclone, the Sundarbans, the Amphan cyclone which came, has completely killed the Sundarbans. All the crops, trees were destroyed. Even in Orissa, in some part of Sundarban, sea is advancing inland 200 yards a year. More than 1 million people have already migrated further from north from Sundarbans because they cannot do any farming there. Cyclone evacuation camp, Orissa. It is the same Amphan cyclone which happened in 2020. Now, these are the various infrastructures which are at risk from extreme weather. More or less, everything is covered in this. There's hardly anything which is not affected by the extreme weather conditions. Now, we see the top 10 cities at risk from sea level rise. As I told you earlier, as the sea is also rising because of temperature, by 2070, Kolkata and Mumbai of India are going to be the top cities at risk by population. By population, because the maximum population is in Kolkata and Mumbai. But if you see the risk by assets, Kolkata happens to become 4th and Mumbai 6th. Only because along the coastline, the number of tall buildings, skyscrapers which are there in Kolkata and Mumbai are much less than what is there in Miami, New York, and such places. Now, global system is vulnerable to climate, both food supply, water, and health is being affected. So today we are basically speaking about water. Now, how does climate change affect water availability? If you see this chart, the left side shows the reduction of supply of water due to melting ice, sea level rise, drought, and runoff water, rainfall water, whereas there is an increase in demand by the industry, domestic use, as well as the energy industry. This is the hydrological cycle which you have all learned during your school days. The water evaporates from the sea and the ground, becomes clouds, and thereafter these clouds precipitate and falls as rain. More the evaporation, more the precipitation, and more the rain that is taking place now. As temperature rises, so does the water use also rise. People need more water because it is hotter, they drink more water. Crops need more water for making energy. The plants need more water, industries need more water, and even animals need more water as the temperature rises. If you look at the increase in annual water demand, India is number 2 in the world. And by 2030, India's annual water demand is likely to nearly double to nearly about 500 billion cubic meters from what it is today. Now, what are the major water repositories? Meaning, which are the places which give us water? Ice and snowpacks, thereafter ground aquifers, lakes and rivers, man-made reservoirs, and forests. These are the main water repositories from which we get water. If you look at the glaciers, the Himalayan glaciers, between 1/3 and 2/3 will melt by 2100, depending on how quickly we reduce emission. In case we don't reduce emission, this might go much further. Also, these are the glaciers which provide water to approximately 1/4 of the world's population. And as far as the Himalayan hinterland is concerned, 70% of water is supplied to 7 countries which are on the base of the Himalaya. The rate of ice melting in the Himalaya has doubled since the year 2000. This is a very worrying thing. This Uppsala Glacier in Argentina, this is how it looked like a couple of decades ago, and this is how it is looking like now. The complete ice has more or less melted. Also, there's been a major groundwater aquifer losing water. You see, 1 millimeter to 20 millimeter of water in aquifers is being lost every year. Even if you look at the Indian map, to the north we have aquifers losing up to 20 millimeter. Northeast and northwest we have aquifers losing up to 10 millimeter every year. This is Lake Chad in Niger, as seen in 1963. See how the lake is depleting over the years. And this is how the lake looks now. Again, Lake Urmia, Iran, from 1984 onwards, the lake has depleted. And this is the case with most of the lakes in the world. 97% of Iran experienced a severe drought in 2018. This is all being shown just to show the effect of the water scarcity. The same. Now, what happens is when there is extra temperature, the extra heat is generated, more water is evaporated from the oceans. Thus, it causes bigger downpour and floods. Also, because of extra warmth, more moisture is pulled from the earth, and this causes longer and deeper droughts. This map shows the groundwater levels in Europe, which are alarmingly low. You see the groundwater wetness percentile down below. Most of these countries have a wetness percentile of just between 2 and 5. In parts of Poland and Romania, the drought is the worst in the century. The Czech Republic, it was worst in 500 years. As of April 2020, in France, water was available only during the morning and evening, and hot water in the weekends. It was Crimea. In France, in some regions, French citizens had to be told to cut back on all but essential water use. This is the major river of China, which generally earlier used to be totally flooded, and this is how it looks like today. There is hardly any water in the river. Our own Chembaram Lake in Chennai. As you know, in 2019 there was a severe drought. This lake was totally dried up, and people had to buy distillery water for even bathing and washing purposes. Cape Town, South Africa, you must be aware of that. In early 2018, the taps in South Africa nearly went dry. The 73 million people in Africa are facing starvation due to mainly drought and crop losses, and some due to conflict too. This June 2020, New Zealand major reservoir was only filled 44% capacity. The 2006 to 2010 drought turned 60% of Syria's fertile land into desert and drove 1.5 million people into Syria's already crowded cities. This man had 40 acres of wheat, and now that 400 acres of wheat has turned into a desert in Syria. In future, large parts of Middle East and North Africa could become uninhabitable. If you see at this map, this is the areas, it's shown in black, which are at present uninhabitable zones. If you see the Indian map, even India, there are on the east coast areas which is uninhabitable as on date. By 2070, the areas which are uninhabitable is likely to be spread over so much area. And if you see at India, nearly 70% of Indian place is likely to become uninhabitable. In Iran, the heat index went to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 74 degrees centigrade on July 31st, 2015. 74 degrees centigrade. Can you believe that? India summer heat may soon be literally unbearable, is what the New York Times said. And this is what we are experiencing. Every year, the summer heat is increasing. When I was a child, we used to live in places where we didn't even have a fan. We could survive without a fan. But today, in the summers, nobody can survive without an AC. That is the kind of heat wave being generated every year. World could also see up to 1 billion climate migrants. This is also basically because of drought, flooding, people are leaving their areas and migrating into towns or areas which are better where they can get some job. The main reason for people moving out, because they need to eat. If they don't get to eat, they need to move out of the area. Now coming to the Arctic sea ice. The Arctic sea ice slowly been melting over the years. If you see how it is, Arctic ice sea is melting, there's hardly any ice left now. Arctic sea ice extent over the last 1,500 years has been like this. If you see the 2000, after 2000, the way the Arctic sea extent has sharply gone down and nearly wiped out the entire Arctic sea ice. Also the temperature, Siberia reached 38 degrees centigrade. This is particularly so because this area in the Arctic is always covered in snow. Even then, it had a temperature of 38 degrees centigrade in midsummer. Moscow always used to have ice in December, January, February, and they used to have a ice festival in Moscow every New Year. The last New Year, there was no ice at all, and they had to resort to getting ice from other places and making an artificial snow. The temperature in North Pole was 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, hotter than normal in February, midsummer, when it is still covered with ice, the temperature has gone to 28 degrees centigrade. The North experienced heat wave for 3 years in a row, 2016, 17, and 18. Even the permafrost in the Arctic has warmed an average of 11 degrees Fahrenheit since 1985. Permafrost is an area where area is completely covered with ice, which doesn't melt at all for years together. Even there, the temperature is increasing and ice is melting. The Arctic has now transitioned from a carbon sink to a net carbon emitter. Earlier, the Arctic was absorbing all the carbon dioxide and creating a sink, but now it is emitting carbon dioxide. There is an unnamed glacier in Greenland, as seen in summer 1935. Thereafter, by 2013, the glacier had been reduced to just flowing water. This graph shows the declining ice mass in Greenland. See the sharp decline by 2020, with hardly any ice being available. Greenland is generally covered totally with ice, and never you used to earlier see any water on it, but now you can see a layer of water on the ice, and these skis are supposed to be skiing on the ice, and they are now going on the water. The ice sheet in Greenland is melting 4 times faster, and more is melting from the permanent ice sheet. The permanent ice sheet on the land is what is melting and not just the glaciers. The Greenland melting extent, if you see here, 60% of the surface of Greenland ice sheet has experienced melting and losing 12.5 billion tons of ice in a single day. This happened in 2019. Now coming to the Antarctic ice. The Antarctic ice loss If you see from 1979 onwards to 2009 to 17, it has gone from 50 billion metric tons to nearly 300 million metric tons today. Antarctica temperatures land reached 69.3 degree Fahrenheit on February 2020, which is a record for Antarctica. The South Pole is warming 3 times faster than the Earth as a whole. There is a Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica. This glacier is a key anchor for the entire West Antarctica ice sheet. And this could melt within a few decades. And once this sheet melts, the entire Thwaites Glacier is in the risk of melting. Flooding from sea level and rise in Bangladesh, this increases the soil salinity. So again, the land becomes arid and people cannot stay there. People start moving out of there. There's an area which was totally covered in green at one point of time. Due to saltwater intrusion, it has totally become infertile now in Egypt. Mekong Delta, Thailand. 1.2 million acres of land, which used to grow rice and fruit crops, are at risk from salination and drought in 2020. You see the photograph, the salination effect happening. There's an island, Kiribati, in the Central Pacific Ocean, which has 30 islands. And these islands are, due to rise in sea level, they are just about 2 meters above the sea surface now. And slowly the sea level is increasing and the land in Kiribati is slowly decreasing and the islands are slowly going underwater. This has led to the government of Kiribati buying 6,000 acres of land in Fiji Island so that people who cannot make any house on the island due to want of land moves to Fiji and stays there as climate refugees. Due to the climate change, in 2015, the 167 countries met in Paris and every country promised to work together to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emission by 2030. But of the 167 nations, at present only about 100 countries are somewhere near achieving that target. India's commitment for the 15 Paris Agreement states that we will reduce emission intensity of GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030. That will be below the 2005 level. Get about 40% of its electricity capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy. Increase forest and tree cover to create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Now, how can India strengthen its climate commitment? Can it do it by enhancing its existing commitment to pursue absolute emission reductions? That is, go for solar energy, wind energy, reduce burn of fuel, shift from coal to renewable, particularly solar and wind, provide renewable access to common man also, eliminate remaining fossil fuel by removing the subsidies, improve energy efficiency, especially in industry and buildings, reduce methane emission from oil and gas production. The COVID has now given us an effective time to do all these commitments, make green jobs possible. Now let's come to the water proper. If you look at how Earth gets water from, where all the Earth gets water from, of the total Earth available on the Earth, water available on the Earth, 96.5% is in the oceans. Another saline water 0.9%. So nearly 98% of water is not available at all because they are saline. They are not potable. Only 2.5% of the water is fresh water. Even of this fresh water, 68.7% are in the glaciers and ice caps, 30.1% in groundwater, and that is where we are now drawing most of our water. Surface and other fresh water is 1.2%. Of that 1.2%, 69% again ground ice and permafrost, lakes 21.9%, and atmosphere 3%, and rest living things, rivers, swamps, marshes, soil moisture, altogether about 5%. India water crisis is because India has a population which is 18% of the global population, whereas what we have is only 4% of the global water resources. Now, if you look at the global use of water, 69% of the water is used for agriculture, 99% for industrial use, and 12% for domestic use. So this is where we need to decrease our consumption. There's a Niti Aayog report, there's a recent Niti Aayog report which says that countries suffering from worst water crisis in history, 600 million people suffer from high or severe water stress. India's demand for water will double what is available today in 2030. 21 Indian cities will run out of groundwater by the next year end. 40% of population will have no access to drinking water by 2030. 6% of India's GDP would be lost by 2050 due to water loss crisis. Also, nearly 2 lakh people lose their life every year due to either want of water or diseases, waterborne diseases, and things like that. Now, what we need to do to save water, if we go by the use of agriculture first, how can we save water? One is by choice of crops. Today, what is happening is most of the states have a definite crop which they always cultivate. Like Punjab always goes to paddy because government has a MSP for that, and most of the paddy is taken by the government. Because of that, these are the crops which use more water. So there's a requirement of choosing crops which don't use that much water. Rather, if you have one crop, paddy, thereafter you must rotate the crops so that during even the drought season, you have crops which will grow. So you need to rotate crops. Then you have to use pulses and drought tolerant crops which are there. Next, there's a requirement of using sprinklers and drip irrigation. At present, rainwater spreads all over. Thereafter, when there is no rainwater available, people take from irrigation wells. And what is happening is, again, the flooding of the fields happen. Instead of that, if you use sprinklers and drip irrigation, the water will be fed only to those plants and there will be substantial saving of water. By planting fruit trees also, a lot of water can be saved, because as it is, what grains we are growing in India today is much more than what is required. Most of the grain, when it is bought by the government, lies in their depots, godowns, and rot most of the time. There's a requirement that farmers shift to fruit trees wherever possible, and fruit trees also give them a much higher yield, much more money. As an example, I can tell you about global Parli of Mayank Gandhi. Mayank Gandhi and his team in Vidarbha district and Parli area has converted about 160 villages into tree fruit growing plants, and this has enabled farmers to generate income which is nearly 100 times what they used to get earlier per acre. So it's a very good alternative to crops. Then go organic. Organic plants need very much less water than normal grown vegetables or fruits or whatever. Then there's a need to store rainwater also. At present, most of the farmers don't store water. They each farm they could make trenches which will store rainwater, and once the rain is over, this rainwater could be used for the next cultivation. That is not happening now. Also, the farmers need to use best practice for better soil quality. The soil quality improves automatically, less water would be required for the farm. So they need to practice better soil quality practices, which are available today. There are farmers who are doing it and reaching good harvest also. So all farmers need to do this, and there's a need to create awareness about this. Now coming to the consumption industry, the thermal power plants are the ones which consume the maximum water. So to leverage technology, we can reduce water consumption. That is, if you increase the better technology which is available in the world, which is used for thermal power plants, the water consumption reduce. Also, there's a need to adopt basin approach to conserve water. Secondly, industries use water in the cooling tower. So instead of using water in the cooling towers, in case we use air, make air-cooled towers, much water can be saved. Secondly, there's also, if we can use the grey or treated water of the industry besides for the plant, they are using water for the people who are working there, for their WCs, for drinking purpose. There's a lot of water which flows out of those things. If they can be treated and again used in the cooling towers, water can be recycled. Water which is being used in the cooling tower can again be recycled to be used again. So there will be saving of water. There are a lot of leaks which happens in such plant. Such leaks need to be identified and corrected, and such plants also need to be regularly repaired and maintained so that they give you the best result and less water is consumed. Now, if you see globally, one is globally how you do work to overcome water crisis. One is local or at state level, at the level of Bombay. What can we do to overcome water crisis in future? A lot of ways. The most important thing, as far as I think, is the rainwater harvesting. There is much scope for it. Bombay gets a rainfall of nearly 3,000 to 3,500 millimeters of rainfall every year. In fact, this year the rainfall was 3,800 millimeters. In case we carry out rainwater harvesting in most of the societies, for an area of 1,000 square feet, up to 3.5 lakh liters of water can be harvested. So in case all the societies in Bombay start harvesting water, then water equivalent to what is stored in the lakes in Mumbai can be collected by rainwater harvesting. That is the amount of potential we have for rainwater harvesting in Mumbai. In case societies have tanks in which they can have this water going, or they have tube wells, they can recharge the tube wells, or in case they don't have tube wells also, this water could recharge the groundwater. The water should go into the ground and not just flow into the stormwater drains and thereafter into the sea. Secondly, as I said, groundwater recharge needs to be done. There's a lot of concretization happening all over the place. This should not happen, so that the water goes into the land and the water table of the land increases. This water goes into the aquifers and the aquifers water increases. There's a need to have underground storage tanks for the overflow water which now are going to the sea. I believe Bombay recently, the Japanese expedition which had come to Bombay, and they have suggested some areas along the Methi River where the overflow of rivers in the rainy season can be stored. So this could also be a method of having additional water. There's also need to recycle grey water. This is again especially for industries and societies. They should recycle the grey water. By just recycling grey water, nearly 50% of the water can be saved. There's also a requirement of rejuvenating the rivers and water bodies of India. There are four major rivers in Mumbai: the Glacier, Poisar, Oshiwara, and the Methi River. All these rivers together are over 50 kilometers long, and if you see the channels in between, they join each other. It is much more. So if all these rivers are rejuvenated and water gets stored in this rejuvenation rivers, lot of water can be saved. At present, what is happening is all this water is going into the sea. Once the rainfall is over, all these waters are totally dry. So there's a necessity to ensure that water remains in this river. One way is having check dams on the river, like what the River March has done here in Daisar. A check dam was made by the outer living people, and in an area of 700 meters, we have managed to store 5 crore liters of water. So in case we have similar check dams on all the rivers, nearly 300 to 400 crore liters of water can be stored in these rivers. Similarly, the water bodies, there are a lot of water bodies in Bombay which has disappeared over the years. Encroachments have taken place. These water bodies needs to be identified. They need to be again rejuvenated so that they also provide water to Bombay when water crisis is there. There's also need to create more forest. But what is happening now is the forest trees are being cut for development purposes. If this happens, forest is an area which holds a lot of rainwater to the ground and thus increases the water table. So in case we keep cutting the trees, this is not going to happen. So we need to make more forest, make the forest denser, create more areas of forest. There are a lot of open plots available in Mumbai which can be easily converted into forest. There is a step going on. A lot of Miyawaki forests are being made. Hopefully by a couple of more years, this Miyawaki forest will come in Mumbai, and that will help a lot in ensuring water, the table in the area, it comes up. Then there's also a need to avoid wastage of water at home. This I'll come to later part, how you can save water at home. There's also a need to avoid food loss and waste. What does this mean? Every day we consume some food, some rice, chapatis, dal, sabji. If you look at the amount used to produce those things, a man is consuming between 2,000 to 5,000 liters of water by having one meal, one day's meal. So when you waste something, you throw away the leftovers, you're wasting water. So there's a requirement of ensuring that you don't waste any food. You make food only that much which you require per day. I mean, even if that, with that thing, it may sound very less, but we see the population of Mumbai, population of India, if everybody does start doing that, you can calculate the amount of water which can be saved. Loss due to leakages. Like people in place like Bombay, the water pipelines are very old. There are a lot of British time pipelines which have not been changed over the years, and there is nearly 30% of leakage in water while it is being transported. This needs to be stopped. Now coming to the daily consumption of water at home. How do we save water at home? This chart shows you the daily consumption of water which you do at home. If you look here, washing clothes and toilet, these are the two main places where water is spent. Thereafter, we have the faucet, that is the basin where the vessels are being washed. Then shower. So in case we want to save water, how do we save water here? Now estimate the number of times you do the following in a day. You take a shower daily. Sometimes some people take shower twice, morning, evening. Flush the toilet. You flush a toilet every time you go to the bathroom. And a person goes to the bathroom nearly 4 or 5 times a day. So every time you flush the toilet. You brush your teeth in the morning. You shave in the morning once. You do your laundry once. You run the dishwasher or you wash the dishes once. So if you estimate the daily water use, for one shower you use 25 gallons of water. If you flush the water 4 times, 32 gallons of water used. When you brush your teeth twice, morning and night, and one shave, you're using 15 gallons of water. One laundry, you use 41 gallons of water. If you use the dishwasher once, 15 gallons. And if it is the bayou is washing the dishes, this goes up to nearly 40 to 50 gallons. So nearly every day, 122 gallons of water are being used. And this is when number of person increases, automatically this water use also increases. So are we really saving any water at all? Now, how can we save water? Simple. If you start from the morning, what you do regularly, first when you go to the bathroom, the toilet flush which is there, one can easily put 1 or 2 bottles filled with water into that, so that capacity of water in the toilet flush decreases. So every time you flush the water, you can save nearly about 3 to 4 liters of water. When you brush your teeth, there's a tendency to keep the tap open. So the tap keeps wasting water where you're brushing your teeth. You use a mug instead. Have a mug of water. Easily you can brush your teeth with 1 mug of water. When you're having bath, when you're using a shower, you tend to remain under the shower for long, so a lot of water is wasted. So in case you use a bucket, you can easily have a bath with even a small leakage. Drop water being leaked from the tap leads to about 36 liters of water being lost every day. So how can you check whether your toilet has a leak? What can be done is inside the toilet, you put some color inside that. In case the toilet is leaking, this colored water will start coming out of the toilet from where the seat area is or below where the water is there in the toilet. So you come to know the toilet is leaking. Such leakages should be stopped. So there are some methods which you can use to ensure that water is saved. And I can assure you, even this saving is not little. You can save nearly about 25 to 30% of water what you're using now. So that's a great amount of water being used. So there are some methods which I thought I will share with you all to save water, to conserve water, so that tomorrow when there is a water crisis, we are well prepared and we will not have any shortage of water in Mumbai, in Maharashtra. Similarly, if the same thing is followed, it can happen in India too. So I end my presentation here. Thank you very much for listening to me patiently. If there are any questions you would like to ask, I'm here to answer. Thank you so much.
Thanks for a brilliant presentation, Colonel Saab. It was really a lot of things that we could learn from the presentation and things that we actually don't know. See, the first step to any correction is to acknowledge it and to acquire knowledge of it. So today, I think we all have acquired a knowledge of what the problem is and how we can resolve it. With this, I bring you to a few questions that I see in the chat, right? Won't it be better if we accelerate river linking plan? Flood-prone and drone areas could be taken care of. What is present status of river linking project?
River link project is something on the national level which I haven't talked about. And there are a lot of people say the river linkage is not good. Some say it is good. So there are a lot of controversy on the what river linkages is concerned.
All right.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, I think river linking project is very good. That should be done because definitely rivers are drying up. I think, is there need of us to less concretize everything? Because Colonel Saab, today when I go out of my house, I see my floor is concrete. When I was a child, there was no concrete on the floor. I used to fall on the floor. There was mud. My floor is concrete. The road is tar or let's say concrete. Wherever I see 360 degrees around, everything is concrete apart from a few dedicated parks. So do you think, is there a need to find an alternative to concrete which would allow groundwater percolation in the city so that the groundwater level rises over there?
Yeah, definitely. such concretization wherever it is not required should not happen at all. Like what you are seeing in Mumbai, even the river,
Hmm.
the base is being concretized, which should never happen. Similarly,
With
if you see the
hmm.
stormwater drains, there is
Hmm.
no need to concretize the lower portion of the stormwater drain. Let the water
All right.
flow through the drain, and
Hmm.
some water can keep percolating into the groundwater. Similarly, in societies, there's a tendency to concretize, put those player blocks everywhere. This should be
Hmm.
avoided as much as possible. The ground should be visible everywhere. Only then the water will percolate into the ground, and the water table will rise. The aquifers will have water.
Absolutely. I think there should be an awareness within the builders. I think the infrastructure community should need to come up with some more green type of engagement when what is related or what is concerned than just concretizing anything and everything that we see. Right. With that, there's another question that is storm drains throughout the city should be punctured with small holes so that rainwater will automatically seep down into the earth and groundwater tables level will be increased.
Yeah, yeah,
Once
absolutely.
underground water,
That's what I said. Stormwater drains need not have concrete at all at the base. Let the walls be concretized and let the base be natural, the ground. So automatically water gets percolated down.
absolutely. Right. So these were the questions from the audience. Colonel Saab, one thing that I'd like to ask you, because I think we have a global audience over here. Climate realities also, and we're talking on behalf of India for the problems of India. What is that one thing that is lacking in the water war that we are starting? So when we come to the session today, what was the purpose of you? Like, how can the public get along with you, and what is it that is lacking in India that you need to start today?
Yeah, what is lacking is policy. Policy making by the government is what is lacking,
Okay.
and thereafter the implementation by the policy makers is also lacking. That is where we need to get after the policy makers to ensure that whatever is required to ensure that such a crisis doesn't occur in future,
Okay.
and the politicians who come to the corporation, who come to the assembly, they should be aware of such things. They should be taught, they should be made aware of what climate change is all about and what is
All
required
right.
to be done, and they should actively participate in ensuring that such policies only are made.
Amazing. So I believe if political will has to be done, it has to start from the people itself.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
know India Against Corruption was a movement where everyone came. I don't know from where even I joined. I don't know why. Nobody paid me for that. And I was in the college back then. So even I joined that movement thinking there's some hope for India. Probably we need that India Against movement type, a big movement for waters, for the environment, where everyone participates without any, personal feeling that what's in it for me.
I'll give you an example. In New York, when Trump said he'll withdraw from the Paris Agreement, 4 lakh
Right.
people came onto the road to protest against Trump's declaration.
Okay.
And Trump had to take back his words. So that is the
Oh,
kind
that.
of people's power we have. Even here, when some policy is not being done, like what happened in RA,
Hmm.
when people came out against the cutting of trees there,
Right.
the government automatically had to come to terms and stop the cutting. And now you know what is happening there.
Absolutely. And further which I think RA was a great example where government tried to actually cut the trees. The trees were being cut, but there have been so many public movements. Like we had Mayank Gandhi, one of the activists of the India Against Corruption, who has started mission 1 crore trees to, that they have cut, let's say 2,000 trees. I'll plant 1 crore trees in next 1 or 2 or 3 years. So I think public movement and public participation, when it increases, even Trump, the government of United States had to take the word back. So I urge all the viewers today and everyone who is seeing our program here to actually join the movement, join Colonel Saab. He's been fighting for us for all his life. So today, let's join him in the war against water. Or today, we are buying our electricity from the private players. I'd like to make a statement as from Mumbai March here, right? Today, we are buying our electricity from private players. There would be time in next 10 years that we'll have to buy water from private players. Your water would be cleaned and brought to your homes by the private players. You'll have to pay, let's say, uh, a hefty amount for it. So today is the time where we can join hands with Colonel Saab, with Climate Reality, with Mumbai March, with everyone who's doing good work, and make sure that water, air, and food is as cheap as possible, because that is complete. That is a basic requirement of humans. So with this, I think we are at 12:20. Colonel Saab, last
Yeah,
words for the public, please.
yeah. I'll just say water is such a commodity, and with the crisis which is happening today,
Mhm.
I will not be surprised if there is a war between countries due to water shortage. There will be army
Okay.
guarding the water points so that nobody comes and takes the water from there. So we need to, though Bombay as such, we think we will have no shortage of water. If you see the overall global,
Mhm.
where the people are dying for water, a couple of billion
Mhm.
people are affected by water crisis in various places. Time will come when
Right.
even
Right.
Bombay will be that way. So if we start uh, accepting that water crisis will be there and accordingly act in a responsible manner, I have no reason to believe that we will come to that stage. Even the government is taking a number of steps to ensure that such a thing doesn't happen. The temperature increase, as I said, at present there's been a 1 degree increase of temperature. By 2030,
Mhm.
they expect this temperature
Mhm.
to increase by another 1 degree, which
All right.
which is reasonable and which can be under control by people. But in case it goes up to more than 1.5 or 2 degrees centigrade, that is when there will be a
Mhm.
lot of problems. There will be upheaval in the various things happening in the world, the floodings and heat waves and things like that. Even pandemic, every year there are 5 different viruses which come into the world.
Mhm.
This particular pandemic, COVID is also one of them, and it is very much due to
Right.
climate change. So we need to understand that we do everything which is possible with us to ensure that
Mhm.
the eco balance of the weather, the atmosphere, the globe as such, the earth as such is maintained so that such catastrophes don't happen. It is for us. It is our planet. We have only one planet. We cannot go anywhere else. So we need
Absolutely.
to ensure that this planet is livable for us as long as life is there on planet.
Absolutely. Great words, Colonel Saab. With this, I promise you that all my contacts, I'm completely with you on the war for water. We also, will be supporting anyone who wants to fight for water. And please, everyone who's listening to this, everyone who's watching this, everyone from the climate reality, please join us and support together, more support. Tell your family and friends to support us for the war for the water, because today is the day, and if it's not today, it will be never. So with this, I really thank Colonel Sir for such an enlightening session. I really thank Climate Reality. I thank Mr. Al Gore for giving us that knowledge, starting this project, giving us that knowledge. Everyone from Climate Reality, you guys are doing a great job. And thanks a lot, Colonel Saab, for the presentation today. And soon we'll be having more from Colonel Saab and every other, more players from more leaders from Climate Reality. With this, I thank everyone, citizens of the world. Thank you.